Review sites usually give us a very good idea of a product or a service. And when it comes to OMSCentral, usually they can be pretty accurate. But in general, how helpful are these reviews? Chronos Matrix. Focus on what matters most. Visually keep your goals in check and create new goals so you can stay on schedule. Watch your daily, weekly, and monthly results to stay focused. Free time optimization app. So my first semester at OMSCS, when I say OMSCS, it sounds weird, right? Because it's not a physical place, but it's like, how else do I say it, right? Taking OMSCS courses, I should say. I had a general idea of the classes that I wanted to take. But then, since you're supposed to be taking an overall, 10 classes overall to get the degree, there's quite a few other classes that I really had no idea what they were about, how difficult the subject matter, and at the time there was not Google Hangouts, it was Google Plus. I don't know if anybody here is really remembering that. It wasn't that long ago. I think it was like 2 years ago that they cut that off. But there was a whole bunch of information on Google Plus for Georgia Tech, and they just cleaned it out. This is another thing that just makes a lot of these Google products just frightening, because it's like they'll have a service, it sounds great, you're using it, and then they'll just collapse the system because they're headed in a different direction. So you can still find quite a bit of information on Reddit. So just do the search for what is it you're looking for off of Reddit. Usually you'll find at least a couple of posts on there. But when it comes to just reviewing the courses in general, since you're not going to have barely anybody in person really to talk to, and like I've mentioned in a couple of videos already, people that you meet, in doing teamwork in one course, you're not going to talk to any of these people once that semester is over, unless you'll see them again. Not even if you see them in another class. That's also really sad. You would have to be in the same, be in another team with them. So, I mean, it's really unlikely. And again, just my experience and the majority of other people. So you might talk to a couple of people that haven't had that experience. Maybe if they live in Georgia or just one of these very big metropolitan cities within the United States, right? But even me being in a place like Bangkok, it's like, no, there was one guy. I'd never met up with him. He was in my team. That's the closest I've been. In my database course, there was quite a few Indian people that I may meet if I actually do a tour go to India for traveling. But at the moment, since everything's just kind of closed down, I'm not sure when that'll be. But that'd be great. That'd be great if I could meet some other OMS students. But it's probably going to be when I go back to the States and start traveling around. All depending on the semester, it'd be cool to meet some people in an actual city and just talk, right? Versus only doing the video conferencing. So anyway, OMSCentral is a really, really good resource because it'll give you that feedback. And one of the nicest things about OMSCentral is that they save all their content from several semesters before. So, I mean, if you really want to do a deep dive, you can see what the course was like a couple of years ago even. And then you can start seeing how it changes. And what I've noticed on almost every course I've taken is that it was so much easier before. You go back and it's like, they didn't have an individual project that now that they have, or the individual project is much more difficult than it used to be, or now they don't allow notes in a test, or the exam grading is much difficult. They take off a curve. So that's also what gives you a solid idea of how much more difficult they're making these courses. Sometimes it's the reverse, like they've changed it where it's like they've eased up a little bit on the difficulty, but that's kind of rare, honestly. The majority of courses I've seen, they just keep ramping them up. So that's another thing that's also interesting about their review system, because they'll have courses that it looks mid-range, but since it's almost like they're normalizing these numbers where it's like you're thinking, oh, it's still a mid-course. Well, no, you could have something that's kind of in the easier route, but it's easier compared to what's currently difficult in these current semesters, right? So a class that would technically have been considered easy, easy for Georgia Tech a couple years ago, Now we can kind of be considered in medium difficulty range. But since they're cranking up the harder courses so much more, it's, it throws off that that rating quite a bit. That's the first thing. So you kind of have to take that with a grain of salt. A lot of classes that they're saying, oh, it's super easy. You're not that sure, first because it's like the scale has been changing, right? Because they're ramping up these courses. But then the other thing, which is my second point here, trying to keep orderly topics. It really does become difficult in some of these courses when you don't have a very strong background in either that programming language or whatever it is that they're expecting you to do in that class, right? So even though you're just assuming, oh well, they're saying it's kind of easy, I kind of have a background in this, you don't know until you get in there how difficult the course is going to be, right? So there's the only class that from the beginning to the end I thought it wasn't easy, but like I just felt in the zone from the beginning to the end was EduTech. It's the only one. And the only reason for that is because my project, I'd already spent almost 2 years researching that idea before I even got into OMSCS. And the language that I was programming in, I had literally been working on it already for 1.5 years also. So it's like I had the tools necessary to develop the project, and it's like I had already done plenty of the research. So the research portion for me wasn't really that difficult, and then the actual implementation was, it took me many hours. It's probably one of the, not the most time-consuming, definitely, but like one of the most, time-consuming courses that I've taken. But I was in the zone. So it's very different when you're just hitting your head against the wall, like computer vision, where it's like you're not understanding the concepts. You don't kind of have like the background. Of course, like computer vision, and they mention this in the reviews too. It's like, before you just jump in there, if you have no background of computer vision, you should be taking computational photography, take, other courses before getting into machine learning. It's like, I took machine learning for trade. It's like, I know there would be a lot of concepts that were kind of easing you in to that course. So in that regard, OMSCentral can be very helpful. But the other thing you have to realize, most of the people that take these courses have a very different background that you might have, right? So even though to you a course might be easy, like I talked to a couple of people that took that EduTech course, and they thought it was really difficult. They had to put all these hours. They were really confused. They struggled through that course, well, because they didn't have the preparation before. I'm trying to think what other course, like software development process, right? It's like before I even got into that course, I had already built this Android app that I'm promoting. So the actual course, it was, I guess medium range difficulty, but had I not already had the experience in Java with Android, that would have been a really pretty brutal course. You look at the reviews, a lot of people are saying, oh, it's going to be easy. It's going to be super easy, barely an inconvenience. And no, you get in there and it's like, this is very time consuming and very tedious. And a lot of these projects, back to databases again, it's like nobody mentioned that the grading was going to be so harsh for the tests. You can have a background in it and just bomb on a couple of tests, and that's totally going to alter your grade, which is then again going to alter your GPA. So people can mention it and say, oh, the tests are easy. Well, if you already have a certain background in that, they might be easy for you, but for other people they're not. So one thing that I think is very strange is in OMSCentral, they should have like what level of preparation you already had, right? How are you going to have the same platform where somebody who's already been programming for 10 years has knows NumPy, understands the Pandas library, just knows these libraries in and out, and then takes a class? For me, machine learning for trade, it's like the stock part of it was a piece of cake, because it's like I've been investing already for quite some time. It's like I understood, I had already built indicators before even taking the course. So it's like the course kind of pushed me a step further, but I thought it was a fair assessment to call that a medium level course. But quite a few of those reviews, like, oh, it's easy. It's like, it's so simple. It's like anybody can get through this and get an A. It's like I've seen several reviews. Just look at the reviews. Several people saying it's like, yeah, you can pair it up with a hard one and you'll be sleepwalking with this one. Not if you've never used any of these Python libraries. It's like, that's not going to be easy. Oh, you can have a really strong Java or C++ background, but you don't have the requirements for that course, and they just ramp up really quickly. It's not something you're going to pick up gently. This is not undergrad. They expect you to already know what you're doing in each one of these courses. So if you don't have the preparation, I mean, the best thing to do is take a semester off, build a project that has to do with what it is that they're asking, and then jump in there. Because a lot of these, there's a reason why so many people are dropping so many of these courses. So when people say it's super easy, there's also the grade distribution that you can see online. Here's something I do for movies, and it's like I have kind of a similar concept with Georgia Tech's OMSCentral. Somebody mentions about a movie, oh, this a great film is going to come out. First thing I do is I look at the Rotten Tomatoes. Where's the tomato meter? If it has a really low rating, but then the box office is huge, there's usually a mismatch, right? If it did really, really badly and the tomato meter is really high, maybe it's an art piece, maybe it just offended certain people. I don't know. There might be certain things about it, but it's like those are the kind of iffy ones. When it has a pretty good, tomato meter, and then it just killed at the box office, it's like, usually it's 9 out of 10 times it is going to be a good film. So it's a better way of gauging, using two different metrics there to have a better idea, right? Well, with OMSCentral, I see what people are saying. Then it's like I'll kind of look at what's the syllabus, like what's the kind of book that's used in that course. And then what I do is I look into the grade distribution. How many people dropped, right? I mean, you look at a course like machine learning. So many people are saying it's so hard, right? A couple other people say, no, they're just exaggerating. It's not that difficult of a course. Well, then you look at the amount of people that are dropping. It's a pretty big number of people dropping that course. So obviously it can't be that easy, right? Whereas other courses, how many people are getting A's? But so getting that grade distribution, comparing it to what the reviews are, that'll kind of give you a better sense of what's going on. But then, backtracking with the syllabus, having an idea of what they're going to be expecting, what they're going to be asking. Because so many of these books, they do, the technical jargon, mumbo, so you're not going to understand, what the books, for the most part, so many of these books are pretty useless as far as understanding what the concepts are. They're great theoretical, abstract knowledge kind of books for later. So it's almost like you should do it in reverse. Work on a project that you care about, learn how the pieces fit, start building something, and then you can learn what the theory is behind it, and then you can go into the really abstract models. But starting with abstract models, our brains aren't really evolved to understand these kind of abstract concepts in that way. So it's really, really not helpful to see a whole bunch of formulas that just look like alien lingo, and then take a test and you're not really even sure what you're supposed to be doing, right? So, and a lot of these courses, that's what they expect. So you're gonna have to grind, do the grind and put in the hours. But anyway, that's also a totally different subject of better ways of preparing for the course. But the whole concept though of the reviews, I thought it's been helpful in some courses, but in others, I think it's just better to just go back as far as you can to get an idea of like how the course has been evolving. Because if you're seeing more and more people also mentioning, it's getting harder or whatnot, and you're trying to pair it up with like another medium or harder level course, it's like that's also going to be a problem. So it can be helpful, but take it almost like as a hint, right? And then finally, what I would recommend, if you're already in the program, if you're not in it, you're not going to be able to do this. But once you're actually in OMSCS, you can audit some other courses. So I would recommend that one. And I did that one for machine learning, just to have an idea what people are complaining about, what people are struggling with, get an idea of what the syllabus is asking. Because you can infer based on the questions people are asking. Well, what was the project that people are working on? Because most of these projects they're not available, so you can't get a good idea and almost like practice before. You just have the book, and like I said, the book, a lot of these books aren't really going to be helpful for, at least not for beginners, or a lot of these books, even for intermediate, it's too high level kind of a thing. So again, for the instructors and the people that have been doing this for many, many years. If you've read so many books for such a long time already, it's like these abstract ideas make a lot of sense. But people that's like they're just starting, or they're just kind of at that intermediate level, it's like you're just losing them most of the time, which is, going back to YouTube, or Udemy, or some of these other sources where you can kind of understand those concepts in a simpler form. But that's my tip for this week. I hope it helps.